I'll start by recognizing myself. My questions are going to largely focus on the training and training standard, the training recommendation that would be necessary to get to return to service, and I just want to explore that. Captain Sullenberger, although you weren't specific, you were more generalized, is it your position that there ought to be required simulator training for pilots on the new, for the software fix for the 737 MAX before it's returned to service versus a computer-based simulator training?
Yes, it's critical that we address all the issues. It's critical that pilots, as soon as possible, experience in a full motion level D simulator, and not just a part task trainer, all the effects of the MCAS system, and also all the other things that likely have not been trained either at all or since initial qualification on the airplane, like unreliable airspeed, manual trim operation, including manual trim operation at very high indicated airspeeds, where it may require either two hands or the efforts of two pilots to actually move the manual trim manually, or in some cases it may not be possible to move the trim manually until air loads are reduced. They need to develop a muscle memory of their experiences so that it'll be immediately accessible to them in future, even years from now, when they face such a crisis.
Okay. I'm just going to ask our staff, and we don't need to get into the technical details of what D-level versus B-level training is, but if staff could do a memo for the subcommittee members, that's kind of some basic stuff, so we don't need to spend time here talking about those differences, but if you could do that for the members so we understand that. Captain Curie, do Allied pilots have a different position or the same position as Captain Sullenberger?
Thank you, Chairman Larsen. While Captain Sullenberger's recommendations are certainly the best case scenario, logistically, American Airlines has 4,200 pilots on the 737 MAX. Southwest would have 9,000 737 pilots. We're in favor of the scenario that Captain Sullenberger described in a video concept, and we do 9-month training protocols. So our pilots will receive a CBT program.
CBT means what?
Computer-based training. Okay. And then the video training program of the scenario that Captain Sullenberger suggests. And after that, we have 9-month training program, which would enable every American Airlines pilot to go through that simulator scenario and that muscle memory exercise within 10 months.
It's a little bit different.
May I add that a spot scenario might help get pilots in the simulator more often and sooner. I understand that that's a logistical matter of great importance, but the point is there are other ways to accommodate more pilots sooner than waiting for their recurrent training cycle to occur.
Okay. Ms. Pinkerton, from the airline's perspective, how does this, where do you come down on this training issue to get to return to service?
As you know, I'm not a pilot, so I don't have this kind of expertise, but we are relying on people who do have the expertise. The FAA is utilizing the Flight Standards Board on this very topic, and we are confident that working with those independent experts involving our pilots unions, they will come to the right decision about what kind of training is needed, and we will provide that training.
So you're, from the airline perspective, you're saying that the Flight Standards Board giving the recommendation of the FAA is where this committee should look for advice on how we should think about the training necessary to go to return to service? Yes. Okay. Mr. Babbitt, have you considered this decision, and could you give us your views on it? Yeah, have you considered this question and give us your views?
Yes, I think that, some training, as I said in my testimony, I don't think a pilot should ever be surprised by anything that happens in an airplane. And this is a pretty substantial piece, and I had the opportunity to see it both ways. However, I think it's a very similar maneuver to other things that happen in the aircraft. My suggestion would be to evaluate it, and quite often, I know ALPA was often involved with the FAA and carriers to decide what training was needed. And I think a consortium of a group like that could make a recommendation. Perhaps it's give them computer-based training, but maybe the next cycle of checks that you should be exposed to it.
Thanks. And President Nelson, I have a question for you. I just want to affirm what you said. The flight attendants are the ones answering the questions from the flying public about is Is this that plane, or is this a different kind of plane? And so I just want to emphasize the FAA needs to continue to include you all in the outreach, because you're the ones answering the questions of the flying public, more so than any other group of people. So.
Appreciate that, and I think that there's been a recognition of that we have to be fully involved for there to be a successful return to flight.
Great, thank you. I understand on the Republican side, we're going to go with Mr. Mitchell first, so, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.